Today we're going to do a new deck tech for a commander from The Lord of the Rings. This one is going to be the greatest little hobbit of them all, Bilbo Baggins. Bilbo birthday celebrant to be specific. So I was looking through the commanders for this set, and this one by far stood out the most to me for a couple of reasons. We'll take a look at it here. Bilbo is white, green, black, so 3 mana Abzan colors. It has a really cool ability. This is the thing that stood out to me. So if you would gain life, you gain that much +1 instead, but also you can pay 2 white, green, black, tap and exile Bilbo, search your library for any number of creature cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Activate only if you have 111 or more life. I thought this was a really cool ability. It's very unique. It's not really something that you've seen on any other card. And also, it's really flavorful. So, if you're not familiar with the Lord of the Rings story, 111 life here has significance because what it is that Bilbo is celebrating his 11th birthday, and you can bring out any creatures from your deck onto the battlefield. So basically, for his birthday, he's bringing out all of his friends and everyone to celebrate. So I thought that was pretty cool. But also though, this card seems quite strong because if you build your deck the right way, this basically says 2 white, black, green, tap, exile Bilbo, you win the game. So basically this is like an Abzan life gain deck that can tutor out all of your creatures, and there are several combos in the deck. So we're wanting to play cards that gain us life, cards that do things when we gain life, as well as some other cards to facilitate this kind of strategy. So we're going to get into this deck now, but just before we do, if you'd like to purchase any of the cards you see in this video, you can get those by going to face2facegames.com. They're the largest Magic store in Canada, and they're also a sponsor of the channel. And if you use code 8thPlaceDave at the checkout, you can save 5% on your order. And also I'd just like to thank my friends Tom and Steve for providing me with a significant number of the cards that I needed to put this deck together. So let's start off with the creatures. Seeing as we're playing green, we're going to take advantage of the ability to be playing mana dorks. We have Birds of Paradise, very classic, as well as Gilded Goose, very similar to Birds of Paradise, however this can be making us foods. One way to build this deck is with a food theme. You could definitely go pretty deep into that theme. The way that I've built this doesn't really rely on foods. I have other ways to gain life. However, we can use foods with things like Gilded Goose just to, to gain some extra life, not necessarily to build around, but it still does work with the strategy. So we have these 2 1-drops. We also have an Avacyn's Pilgrim, similar to Birds of Paradise, but just taps for white. I like this one because it gives you 2 different colors basically, because if you play this, you already have green, but then it taps for white, so you have 2 of your colors covered there. Let's put these up here, how about that? So now we're going to get into some ways to gain life. There are several effects like this right here. Essence Warden, 1 mana, 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. So effects like this are going to be one of the main ways for us to gain life. And if we have Bilbo in play, it says if we would gain life, we gain that much +1. It doesn't seem like a lot, but this says whenever another creature enters the battlefield. It doesn't even have to be under your control. So if you have these 2 in play, anytime a creature enters the battlefield under anybody's control, you're going to gain 2 life, which can add up quite fast. So we have Essence Warden, Soul Warden, Soul's Attendant. There's also this one here. It's not the same type of life gain. We have a Serra Ascendant. It's a pretty popular commander card. Also used to see play in Modern a bit. It can gain us life through lifelink. Also though, it's just a 1/1 for 1, but as long as we have 30 or more life, which in Commander you start with more than that, it has +5/+5 and flying. So this is a 1 mana 6/6 flying lifelink. That can be gaining us a lot of life, get us quite a long way to that 111 that we need. One thing I should point out about Bilbo is that it says activate if you have 111 or more life. One thing I've noticed is that several people that I've spoken with about this thought that it said activate only if you have exactly 111 life. That would make the card a lot worse, but it says 111 or more, so as long as you can get to, above 111 or exactly 111, you're good. Some more very classic commander cards going with life gain strategies here. Blood Artist. Here's a Dina Soul Steeper, actually. This one is pretty cool. So I used to have a Dina deck, and basically I've turned that deck into this one because there were a lot of overlapping cards and themes with this, with the life gain. And rather than have two decks that are very similar, I just turned the Dina deck into a Bilbo deck. But Dina does work very well in this strategy. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So we're playing lots of effects like the Essence Warden and Soul Warden that are individual life gain triggers, and that's what you want with Dina. You don't necessarily want to be gaining a whole bunch of life at once. You want lots of individual triggers. So we've got Dina in here. We've got this Archivist of Ogma, pretty new card out of Baldur's Gate. It's not super big into the life gain strategy with this, but we can gain life. This is kind of just a generically good card that incidentally does work with this theme, because whenever an opponent searches their library, we gain a life and draw a card, so we can get some life gain triggers from that, and also just have a strong generic good card in our deck. Auriok Champion here is another card that's very similar to something like Soul's Attendant. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, we may gain 1 life. This one costs 2 mana, however it also has protection from black and red. So this one can be doing a lot of work with having protection from 2 colors. This card right here, Karlov of the Ghost Council, this can be kind of like an alternate win con slash, not really an alternate commander because it doesn't have all 3 colors, but it's a card that really takes advantage of life gain strategies. Whenever you gain life, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Karlov. So this can get massive really fast. Also, you could pay a white and a black, remove 6 counters from it, and exile a creature. So this is repeatable removal on a creature, which is pretty great. Here's Elas Ilkor. What's the rest of that name there? Sadistic Pilgrim. It's basically another similar kind of effect to Soul's Attendant and Auriok Champion. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we gain a life. But also, whenever another creature we control dies, each opponent loses a life, so it can be draining the opponents as well. Very similar here, we've got a Suture Priest. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we gain a life. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, we can have that player lose a life. I mentioned that this deck has some combos. This is part of one of them, part of several actually, Vizkopa Guildmage. We're playing this mainly for the second ability. Whenever we gain life this turn, each opponent loses that much life. So there are several cards that this combos with. It can go infinite with something like Exquisite Blood, I believe, or is it Sanguine Bond, one of them. We're going to set it off to the side, and I'll try to remember it when we get to the cards it combos with, but this is a big combo piece. We're playing Heliod, Suncrowned. Whenever we gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature or enchantment we control. You can pay 1 and a white to give a creature lifelink until end of turn. So this is another combo-y type of card, and we also have its best friend right here, Walking Ballista. You know, the Ballista Heliod combo was pretty popular in Modern, but they do go infinite, and I'm not really a huge fan of playing too many infinite combos in my deck, but at the same time, I do want ways to be able to just end the game if it's going super long and grindy. And these cards will do that. If you want to have the game end, you can just play these and, put infinite counters on Ballista, do infinite damage. We've got a Veto, Thorn of the Dusk Rose. It has the same ability as the Guildmage there, except we don't have to activate it. It's just a static ability. When we gain life, target opponent loses that much life. In this case, though, it's target opponent, not each opponent. And we can also pay 3 and 2 black to give our creatures lifelink until end of turn. So this is another pretty combo-y card, but it's also just generically good for life gain decks. We've got this Prosperous Innkeeper here. It's not a mana dork, but it does ramp us early on by making a treasure token when it enters the battlefield, but it's another one of the cards that has the effect like when a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we gain a life. So you can see we're playing a lot of effects like this, but as I said, these effects do add up pretty fast with Bilbo. We've got this Spike Feeder in here. This card combos with Archangel of Thune, as well as Heliod. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. And Spike Feeder says you can remove a counter to gain 2 life, so you can get infinite counters that way. This is another way to kind of just end the game, but definitely a very good card for life gain decks, and we're playing it in here. Marauding Blight Priest is very similar to Dina. It says whenever we gain life, each opponent loses 1 life, so we've got this in here as well. Lathiel the Bounteous Dawn is pretty cool. 2/2 lifelink for 4, so 2/2 for 4 is not big, but It says at the beginning of each end step, if we gained life this turn, distribute up to that many +1/+1 counters among any number of other target creatures. So, with the cards you've seen so far, that gains us a lot of life. We have some other cards, though, that can be really big life gain effects, and that can get kind of out of control with Lathiel right here. There's Treebeard here that I think is pretty cool. It's a new card from the Commander deck, 4 mana, 0/5, Trample Ward 2. When it enters the battlefield, we make 2 food tokens, but whenever we gain life, put that many +1/+1 counters on target halfling or tree folk. So we can be making basically either Bilbo or Treebeard pretty huge. Treebeard with Trample and Ward 2 can be kind of a game ender on its own, actually. Accomplished Alchemist is pretty cool. It's a big mana dork, but we can get a ton of mana with this. It's a 4 mana 2/5. We can tap it at 1 mana of any color, or at X mana of any one color, where X is the amount of life we've gained this turn, which can be a lot. We have a Rock's Faith Mender. This is doubling our life gain effects. Has lifelink, and if we would gain life, we gain twice that much life instead. Here's this card you probably can't read, but you're probably familiar with it also. Sheoldred the Apocalypse. Whenever we draw a card, we gain 2 life. When an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. So we can gain a lot of life from this card right here. Here's another very iconic life gain card, Grey Merchant of Asphodel. We're not really playing with a ton of Devotion to Black, but that's okay because this drains our opponent for our Devotion to Black, but it drains each opponent and we gain life equal to the life lost this way. So even if we're just draining for like 3 or 4, we're still gaining, 10 plus life there. So I think it still works pretty well. Angel of Destiny, another way to not necessarily win the game, but to take somebody out of the game. Flying double strike, whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. At the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 life more than your starting life total, each player Angel of Destiny attacked this turn loses the game. So this is a pretty good way to take somebody out of the game, and there's a pretty good chance that we'll have at least 15 more life than our starting life total. Here's Archangel of Thune, which I mentioned earlier. Combos with Spike Feeder right there. There's probably some other cards as well, but it's flying lifelink. Whenever we gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control. So yes, this is a very combo-y card, but it's also great for life gain decks. But yeah, we're playing it in here for sure. Felidar Sovereign right here. 6 mana, Vigilance, lifelink. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we have 40 or more life, we win the game. So, probably we'll have 40 more life. Thing with this, though, is the hard part is having this survive a turn and then get to your upkeep and trigger. Usually your opponents will be able to remove it, but if they can't, you win the game. So those are all of our creatures. There's quite a few you can see here, but, with Bilbo's abilities, has put all your creatures into place, so we want to be able to take advantage of that ability. Got some instant and sorceries here too, though. This one is pretty cool, I think. Stormherd, one you might not necessarily see a lot, but I think it's pretty good for this deck. A 10 mana sorcery, so pretty big there, but it says create X 1/1 white Pegasus creature tokens with flying, where X is our life total. So, if we're gaining a lot of life, we're going to make a lot of Pegasuses, or Pegasi, I don't know, you decide. But you saw earlier we have a lot of effects that say we gain a life when a creature enters the battlefield. So, we'll make a ton of creatures and then gain a ton of life. Seems pretty good to me. Fumigate, we have a board wipe here that also gains a life for each creature destroyed this way. So fits pretty well in here. I like playing at least one board wipe in each of my decks. Maybe not a ton, but we have our one here. Seeing as we're playing green, we also have a bunch of land ramp. We have Rampant Growth, Farseek, 3 Visits, Nature's Lore, Cultivate, and Kodama's Reach. I feel like in pretty much any green deck, these are all staples. They go in pretty much every green deck, and that's the case with this one as well. So we're playing all these ramp cards right here. This card is cool. It's one that I alluded to earlier with being able to gain a lot of life. Revival Revenge, we're playing this for the revenge part. It says, double your life total, target opponent loses half their life rounded up. So this can gain us a ton of life in one turn. Can work well with something like the Accomplished Alchemist, wherever I put it, where you, right there, you tap to add X mana of any color, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. You could add a lot of mana with that. There's also another half of this card right here. Revival, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Definitely relevant. We're not playing it for this part, but that could be very important in some games. Debt to the Deathless is pretty cool right here. It's a pretty big sorcery. You have to put a lot of mana into it, although you just saw we can make a lot of mana with Accomplished Alchemist. Maybe put that into Debt to the Deathless. Each opponent loses 2 times X life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. So this is another one that reads similar to Grey Merchant, where you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So we're going to be gaining a lot more life than the damage that we've dealt. Same idea with Exsanguinate right here. Very popular commander card, and we're playing it in this deck. We have a bit of removal here. We've got a Mortality Spear, 4 mana, but it costs 2 less if we gained life this turn. Destroy target non-land permanent, so usually this should cost only 2. Also got a Source of Plowshares. Usually people play this as just a 1 mana removal, but one thing that's cool that you can do with this deck is says exile target creature, its controller gains life equal to its power. So if you're close to getting to the 111 life and you have a big creature, you can exile your own creature to gain some life. That could definitely be relevant, even just to get a life gain trigger. I could definitely see myself swordsing one of my own creatures. Then Anguished Unmaking, just a way to exile any non-land permanent. We lose 3 life, but that's okay. Got a Beacon of Immortality. It's basically another copy of Revenge right here. It costs 1 less, actually. No, wait, it costs the same. They're both 6. But yeah, instant, double target player's life total. Shuffle this into its owner's library so we can gain a ton of life from this beacon right here. As I've said in some of my other deck tech videos, I like to play usually one tutor, like one of the generically good tutors. I don't want to overload my deck with them, but same idea. We've got one right here. We are playing a copy of Vampiric Tutor. As you saw, there's many combo pieces in this deck, so we can go and find one with Vampiric Tutor. I'm going to make some more room right here. Let's move these up, move these up. We'll leave those ones there. So we've got some artifacts as well. Not a whole lot of artifact ramp, seeing as we're playing green, but we do have Mox Amber and Solar Ring right here. I like playing Mox Amber in pretty much any commander deck where the commander costs 3 or less, and Bilbo costs 3, so got a Mox Amber in here. Got this Well of Lost Dreams. Pretty good card advantage when we're playing a life gain deck. Whenever we gain life, we can pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life we gained. If we do, we draw X cards. So we can be drawing a lot of cards with that card right there. Aetherflex Reservoir goes in a ton of decks. Another way to just end the game. But yeah, if we're playing a life gain deck, we're playing Aetherflex. With this Alhammaret's Archive, very good for this deck. If we would gain life, we gain twice that much life instead. And if we would draw a card except for the first one we draw in our draw steps, we draw 2 cards instead. So doubling up our life gain, pretty good for this. We've got the One Ring in here. This is a good card, so it can, definitely do a lot of work. However, the main reason I put this in here is because I feel like if we're playing Bilbo, thematically we need to have the One Ring in here. So we have it in here, but yes, it is a good card. Indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, we cast it, gain protection from everything till our next turn. At the beginning of our upkeep, we lose a life for each burden counter on it, but we can tap it, put a burden counter on it, then draw a card for each burden counter on it. So actually it does work quite well in this deck, because normally the concern with this is that you get too many burden counters, start losing too much life, but in a life gain deck, that should be just fine. So not a whole lot of artifacts, just the 6 in here, but we do have a significant number of enchantments, so I'm going to make a bit more room for the enchantments here. So we've got this Blood Chief Ascension, very cool card, just 1 mana. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, put a quest counter on it. And then whenever a card is put in an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if this has 3 or more quest counters on it, we can have that player lose 2 life. If we do, we gain 2 life. So that can get out of control really quickly, because it's when a card's put into their graveyard from anywhere. So if someone's trying to, maybe self-mill, or if someone board wipes or something, that's going to be a lot of triggers for this. Authority of the Consuls, great for gaining life, another just 1 mana enchantment. Creatures enter the battlefield tapped for our opponent, but also whenever a creature enters the battlefield under opponent's control, we gain a life. Cleric class, If we would gain life, we gain that much +1 instead, just like Bilbo. But it also has the ability, when we gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature we control. And then it also has this third ability, which does stuff, but usually I'm just concerned with these first two. It's like Bilbo. It's also like Heliod and things like that. So yeah, we're playing that card in this deck here. It's pretty much perfect for it. Dawn of Hope, another great way to gain some life and draw cards. This actually doesn't gain life itself, but it makes soldiers with life link, and then whenever we gain life, we can pay 2, and if we do, we draw a card. So good card advantage engine. Sylvan Library, just a generically good card. It can go in literally any green deck and be awesome. And yeah, we're playing it in here because we're playing green and it's awesome. There's this Tokaji's Welcome. Another just generically good card. Whenever one or more creatures with mana value 3 or less enter the battlefield under our control, draw a card. Triggers only once each turn. You saw we have a ton of little creatures. We don't really need to do anything to make this card good. It's just a good card advantage engine. Life Gift is really cool. 3 mana enchantment. Whenever a land comes into play, we may gain 1 life. Very important that this triggers for every player. It's not just our lands. So, in a 4-player game, this is probably going to trigger a lot. This is one where you want to remember the triggers. It is a bit annoying because you have to point it out so many times, but this card can be a little bit inconspicuously powerful, kind of creeps up on people. It gets a lot of life gain triggers, great with something like Dina. Smothering Tithe is a good card, so we're playing it. Meathook Massacre is a good card, so we're playing it, but also, this works well with the life gain strategy. Test of Endurance is basically another copy of Felidar Sovereign, Felidar Sovereign. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we have 50 or more life, we win the game, so not exactly the same. We need 50 life instead of 40, but, that's easy enough to do. Got the Sanguine Bond and the Exquisite Blood. This is the infinite combo. If you have these in play, you gain a life, they just trigger infinitely, and you drain everyone out. There's only one Planeswalker in the deck, Ajani Strength of the Pride. Chosen this one specifically. +1, you gain life equal to the number of creatures you control, plus the number of Planeswalkers you control. You can -2 to make an Ajani's Pride mate, or 0 if you have at least 15 or more life than your starting life total, exile Ajani, and each artifact and creature your opponents control. So this is cool because it can gain us a ton of life while going up, but also it's like a board wipe on a Planeswalker that's very easy to do. You just 0, and it exiles, it doesn't even destroy stuff. So yeah, this seems like perfect for this deck. So that's all of the spells. We're going to go over some of the lands now. There aren't very many utility lands, just a few. We've got Vault of the Archangel, give our creatures Death Touch and Lifelink till end of turn. Sapseep Forest comes into play tapped, but we can tap it to gain a life. This is good to be able to just get a life gain trigger whenever we want, basically. And then the Shire, similar reason I'm playing it to the One Ring. I feel like if I'm playing Bilbo, I need to be playing the Shire. But it does work with life gain strategies. We can pay 1 and a green and tap it. Tap an untapped creature we control to make a food token. So we can definitely make use of those food tokens. The rest of the lands are just mana producing lands. So we've got a bunch of rainbow lands here that can give us any color we need. Exotic Orchard, Command Tower. We've got the On-Color Triome, Mana Confluence, City of Brass. Those are our rainbow lands, as I like to call them. Some fetches. Basically got all the on-color versions of all the lands I'm going to go over. So all the on-color fetches, as well as this additional Frozen Verge is like a slow fetch that ramps us. Actually, it's not even a fetch at all. It's just a land that ramps us. It is a slow land, though. Got the on-color Shock lands, the on-color Pathway lands, the on-color Filter lands, the on-color, what are these, slow lands? The on-color Battle Bond lands, I guess, or / Commander Legends lands. Then some basics, 2 plains, 2 swamps, and 3 forests. So that's the Bilbo deck. I think it's very cool. It's kind of a different take on a life gain kind of strategy. As I said, it's very similar to the Dina deck, but it adds white into the deck. And it's also, I like how it's just very thematic. It's a very flavorful card. So I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of different ways you could build this deck. If maybe you've built it, you could have built it a completely different way. I'd be interested to hear your opinions. Maybe you have some suggestions for what I could add into this deck, or if I could maybe you think one of the different ways is better than this. Definitely like to hear your thoughts on the deck. But if you have any opinions, leave them in the comments below and I'll give it a look. If you're still watching though, thanks for watching. It'd be cool if you can like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. I encourage everyone to come join my Discord server. You can find a link to that in the video description below. In the video description, you can also find my affiliate links for Dragon Shield. In case you'd like to purchase any gaming supplies, maybe some sleeves like this, you can follow those affiliate links and help out the channel while you do so. And also, once again, if you'd like to purchase any Magic cards, you can get those by going to face2facegames.com. And if you use code 8thplaceDave at the checkout, you'll save 5% on your order. Also, I'd just like to thank all the patrons who support me on Patreon. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.